Welcome back to the penultimate video in our series about how do we help students take an anti-boring approach to their own learning this school year. We have been looking at various different characteristics of what it means to be an anti-boring student and anti-boring educator. And today we've got two more of those. And these two things today are near and dear to my heart because they are skills that I personally have spent a great deal of effort to cultivate in the years since I was a classroom teacher. I've been an academic coach now for about 15 years. And when I was a teacher, I did not really embody these particular characteristics in the classroom, in my learning. And now I think I am an expert at these two characteristics, and I see how they make a difference with students in going from good to great learners. So let's learn about them. I think, because I mentioned it in the last video, I'd like to start here. Anti-boring students and their educators incorporate meta breaks to assess our own learning. So let me talk first of all about what a meta break is. I have another video, maybe we can link it below, where I talk about the do notice loop. You do a little something in a coaching session with a student and then you notice about it. And then you do a little something else and you notice about it. That doing might be practicing note taking, that doing might be filling out a planner. There are all kinds of things that as people who work one-to-one with students, we do as a way to practice the student success skills that we ultimately want a student to be able to embody by themselves. I call this do notice loop a meta break. Well, and actually the notice part of it, I should be more accurate. The notice part of it is the meta break. So when you do something like practice note taking, then the break, the meta break, is when you pause to say, let's talk about that. What did we notice about what that was like? And, well, you know what? Normally I say, let's wait until the end of the video for this script, but it's pertinent right now. So let me go get it. I just kicked the table. Okay, what just happened? What did you learn? And how did you learn it? And what does this teach you about how to study or how to learn or how to insert action here in the future? It can be so powerful to insert these kinds of reflections seamlessly into a coaching session or a classroom if you're a classroom teacher. But this is where the learning really happens. This is where we don't just help students improve their skills when they're in our presence, but we teach the student to fish, right? That famous phrase, let's teach the students to fish, not just give them fish. And it's in the meta break. Meta means rising above, right? Rising above, looking down, and assessing, noticing, gleaning wisdom, paying attention. It kind of goes along with what we talked about in the last video about curiosity. A meta break is a curiosity skill. It's building that curiosity muscle. And so I recommend that you write this question down and you practice asking it of your students. When you're in the midst of doing something, classroom teachers, it could be even you could set a timer for 15 minutes, and when the timer goes off, you stop wherever you are and you're like, whoa, meta break time. What'd you learn? What's something you learned recently? How did you learn it? Did you learn it because of something I did as your teacher, the way I presented the information? Did you learn it because of the way you, the student, were paying attention or taking notes? How did you learn it? And then, most importantly, what can you apply to your future learning? When you're studying at home tonight, is there something we did today, that I did or you did, that you could do again to help you consolidate your learning even more deeply? Oh my goodness, I think it would be transformative for students if classroom teachers, as well as those of us who are tutors and coaches, got so practiced at the meta break that it becomes a fluent, almost unconscious thing that we do with students several times. Now, I want to remind you that the meta break is not just something for educators to do, but for students to learn to do as well, right? But we start by embodying these skills ourselves. And then eventually, you might even point out to students, whoa, time for a meta break. What do I often do during our sessions? Yeah, we take time to notice about what just happened, what we're learning, and what we want to take into the future. How can you do that for yourself? How can you develop the habit of taking meta breaks when you're in the midst of your own studying and noticing what's working and also what's not working, and then adjust accordingly? All of these skills, I'm so passionate about this idea. There's not a single skill that resides in an educator that a student doesn't need. And there's not a single skill that resides in a student that an educator doesn't need. We all need the same skills. And I am passionate about talking about students and educators always in the same breath. It's maddening, I think, sometimes, or my wonderful marketing people who assist me, you know who you are. Because I'm still talking about students, even though we're trying to talk more and more to educators and to coaches, right? And it's because I am passionate about the importance of intergenerational collaborative skill building, which is what good teaching and good coaching truly is. Chew on that. I might need to watch this video and listen to what I just said, because I think there was something really brilliant in that last sentence. Maybe we need to write it down for the book. Okay. Oh, you know what? Before I do this, I haven't been asking this of you all lately. Could you please, pretty please like and subscribe to my channel if there's something of value here for you? Or pause and tell me, take a meta break right now. Put in the comment below, what is something that you've learned? How did you learn it? And what are you going to take into the future from the video thus far? That would be fun to read. All right, this other skill is another one that, I lied at the beginning. I said that when I was a teacher, I wasn't good at this. The truth is, when I was a classroom teacher, I wasn't good at this. But I've always been good at this, and sometimes too much so that it was actually confusing for students. I was experimenting so much, there wasn't regularity. I would be a much more routine-oriented teacher now if I went back to the classroom based on what I've learned about what it's like for students. Anyway, let's look at this. Anti-boring students and their educators celebrate experimentation, mistake-making, and playfulness in our learning processes. I should have put the word process there. I think that would be better. I think a lot of people, especially those of us who are student success coaches working one-to-one with students, we have to develop a sense of experimentation because one tool is not going to fit for every student. And so we have to work with each of our students to practice, like, oh, how can we tweak this idea or tweak this tool to work for you? And here's the thing that we could stand to model more for students is how to not give up when something doesn't work the first time, but how to stick with it with curiosity, but like, oh, let's do an experiment this week. You know what? I didn't make a whiteboard for this, but this would be another one of those scripts that I say all the time in my coaching sessions that I recommend you take on. I used to use the word commitments with students. What are you going to commit to doing at the end of the session? And then I've shifted that over time to what would you like to experiment with over the next week? That way we are not actually trying to find perfection, right? We're just experimenting. We're just seeing, or we're just playing. What do you want to play with this week? I really believe that perfectionism is cultivated inside of our education system, our institution of schooling. I'm just kind of making this one up right now, but I think it's true. I think more than any other institution in the Western world, perfectionism is bred and cultivated inside the very structure of how we do school. And I think that perfectionism is dangerous. And in fact, it is listed in the article, I can't think of the authors right now, but who have written about white supremacy culture in schools. Not even just in schools, white supremacy culture in general. Perfectionism is one of the characteristics of white supremacy. I think it is also a characteristic of any person of one or more marginalized identities, maybe women, maybe people of color, maybe queer, etc., etc. It is something that we unconsciously strive for so that we can fit into the dominant culture. And students are trying to fit into the dominant culture at schools and feeling like crap about themselves if they don't. And so they're trying harder and harder for perfection. Even if they look like they're not perfectionist. This was the biggest aha for me once I was coaching lots of students. I thought so many students were lazy and didn't care. Actually, they cared so much they didn't even want to get started. They so wanted to please the person in authority. They so wanted to show that they are worthy of the grade. They so wanted to be competent that they couldn't even get themselves to start an assignment. And this is why, of all of the characteristics, the anti-boring characteristics that I'm talking about in this series, in some ways, this is the one that's the most poignant. Because the opposite of this is the foundation of what the institution of schooling is built on. And so to stay in experimentation mode, to let ourselves make mistakes, mess up, try again, be playful about it. It's so hard because it goes against the very foundation of schooling, and it's so necessary for our mental health. Like the antidote to our mental health crisis for students may be in our ability to experiment more, have more grace for our mistakes, be able to play more rather than to try and be perfect. I'm feeling the poignancy of that right now. Are you? Let me know how you're feeling below. I'd like to hear you. I said a lot of big ideas in this video, and some of them might have gone over your head, or some of them you might disagree with. And so please feel free to let me know what felt right, but also what might have felt wrong about what I shared. And experiment with your comment. Play with it. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just ramble. But I'd love to hear. And I'll see you in the next video.